Why are preseason polls always incredibly wrong on most rankings by the end of the season? Well, that's because a lot changes, Ross, first and foremost. But there's a camp that some of you may think I'm in that I'm not in. A lot of you are in the abolish preseason polls camp, and I've never been there. In fact, it might surprise you to know I'm even on the opposite side of the coin. I actually kind of like preseason polls. I was just on TV there in the B-roll. I actually like preseason polls, but I properly interpret preseason polls. Notice I didn't say I respect them. In fact, I have very little respect for most polls, some more than others, or some less than others. A certain 3-letter poll was released today by a certain 4-letter network, and that's as far as I'm going to go on it. But I'm telling you right now, there's a program in Lee County, Alabama, that this certain poll ranked top 10, and the fans of that team are making fun of the poll. Because the fans of that team know how ridiculous it is that that poll ranked their team in the top 10. Not to give anything away. Preseason polls are fun, and that's all they're meant to be. And largely, they're meant just for preseason fodder. I have always fancied myself as someone who can properly interpret preseason polls. What they're not is an end-all, be-all. They should not be your compass to the season. They should be written in very light pencil, figuratively, of course. You do that in the magazine industry, and you're going to be out of business very soon. Preseason polls, to me, are just something to do to pass the time. Here's the key. The key is, number one, know how to interpret them, which is just kind of rough guidance to go off of. It's like if I'm looking at the GFS, but it's 7 days out. I don't care where it says specific squall lines are going to be. I just care if it's telling me there's a chance, I got an amplified pattern here, there's a chance we could have some unsettled weather in the south. That's about all that model's good for 7 days out. A preseason poll, if it tells you Iowa State is number 7 preseason and Oklahoma's number 5 preseason, whatever. Just take it to mean both teams are expected to be pretty good. And then that's it. The key is that. But the second key, and this is more important if you're participating in polls or you're putting together power rankings of your own, you've got to be able to pivot on a dime. Don't ever marry yourself to opinions that were created in August. Because the sum, after this weekend actually for a lot of you, if you're having spring games, the sum of what will change about your program from, let's say, Sunday all the way through SEC and Big Ten and ACC media days through the opening of spring or fall camp is nil. I mean, maybe you make some moves in the transfer portal, but yet there's so much time to talk between spring practice and fall camp that people work themselves up to believing things out of boredom that may or may not be true, and they marry themselves to the opinion. In our industry, it's really bad because, like, I'll do who knows how many 100 talk radio spots in those months. And if I just decide I want to sound cool and say Kentucky is going to win the SEC East, I repeat that stuff so much that by the time we actually get to fall camp opening, it's like it sounds second nature to me. And therefore I may, if I'm not careful, watch Kentucky struggle in week 1 and struggle in week 2 and think to myself, oh, they'll get over it. That's because my default is an opinion that was born in June that I have no business being married to. If you have the preseason rankings, that's cool. But you should also be willing for them to be shaken up over one Saturday in week 1 more than the previous 3 months. The previous 3 months means nothing. No football happened. Football actually happens in week 1. So rank them. By all means, rank them. But if someone who you rank top 5 shows themselves to be fraudulent in week 1 and someone you have outside the top 25 looks stellar, don't find yourself saying, let me give it a month. Let me give it a month. No! You just saw the total amount of football that anyone has seen in 2022 so far, week 1. Be willing to move off those preseason rankings and preseason opinions. If you're willing to do that, I have no problem with preseason polls. The problems people have had in the past is folks don't do that enough. And especially in the era where AP voters either decided the national champ or they had a say in the formula for the BCS, your problem was justified. Your problem was, wait a second. So this guy who writes for a paper in Colorado Springs, Colorado, won't move this team out of the top 5, and it stands to reason the only reason he won't do it is just because he had him there in the preseason. And this team at number 7 has shown a much better resume then the team at number 5. That stuff is valid. That's a valid criticism. So if you got someone who understands how to do a poll correctly, then and only then am I okay with them.